Welcome back to Talk of the Town on 99.7, 1450 WHTC and WHTC.com.
Welcome back to Talk of the Town for this Friday, August the 7th. I'm Gary Stevens. First Friday of the month, we get caught up with what is going on with the Community Foundation of the Holland, Zeeland area. Normally, we are joined by its president, Mike Gorehouse, but Mike is ably stepping aside to allow Elizabeth Kidd, the Vice President of Community Impact, People and Culture, to join us. She's on the other end of our Zoom connection. Elizabeth, good morning and welcome back to Talk of the Town.
Thanks so much for having me. Glad to be here this morning.
Glad you are with us. And if you have a question for Ms. Kidd, she'll be happy to answer it at 395-1450, 395-1450. Have things started to stabilize a little bit with the foundation?
Stabilization is a word that's on our mind these days. We're shifting really in our work from those first few months where just everyone was trying to get their bearings, try to respond to kind of an emergency crisis situation, and now we are settled into what we're calling our stabilization fund, which is our next phase of response to this kind of ongoing crisis that we find ourselves in.
We'll talk about the stabilization fund in a few moments. If you have a question for Ms. Kidd, she'll happy to take it. Not via the Zoom connection. No. You got to do it under the normal circumstances at 395-1450, 395-1450. Before we talk about the stabilization fund and this next phase, let's take a look back. And if you can, look back over the 4 months or so that we've been under. Let's see, May, June, July. Yeah, now 5 months since that time. Can you put a number as to how much the foundation has helped the community, not just directly with people, but maybe through businesses as well? Can be a number put on that?
Absolutely. And certainly we wouldn't be able to do any of this without our partners, whether that be our donors, whether that's individuals, businesses, families, or just all the nonprofit organizations that take our dollars and turn them into services and supports for our community members. So in that first phase, those first few months, our emergency response phase, we distributed over $911,000 in partnership with our Greater Ottawa County United Way and the Grand Haven Community Foundation, along with the Holland Zeeland Community Foundation. We're able to get nearly $1 million into the hands of our local nonprofit partners to help folks stay fed, stay housed, stay healthy. And we worked with 56 partner organizations around the community, large, small, just looking across all those different needs that folks were experiencing and trying to help as many of our community members as we could.
What about with Care Ottawa County, the Patrick Sisler effort,
Yes.
along with Mike Gorehouse as well?
Exactly. That was actually all part of this. I will say one of those things that we've always valued about West Michigan and Holland Zeeland in particular is the way folks come together, work together all the time, but especially in times of crisis. And that certainly played out here. The funders like the United Way, the community foundations, and lots of individual donors, families, and businesses got together quickly, formed that careottawa.com that really served as a hub for all of us, whether folks needed to find assistance or whether they wanted to volunteer, they wanted to donate, whatever their circumstances were. careottawa.com was a place for folks to get connected and find the right way for them to engage in this moment. And certainly the work that Patrick Sisler and the Lakeshore Nonprofit Alliance, Community Spoke, all these kind of partnership organizations that always serve us well, I think really came through for us during that initial crisis period.
Elizabeth Kidd, let's talk a little bit about the Community Foundation of the Holland Zeeland Area's Community Stabilization Fund. Exactly what does that entail, and in what ways does it help the community?
Great question. So as we're shifting from that first kind of, oh my goodness, we just need to try to, find solid territory here and shift into this stabilization fund phase, we're looking at how we can continue to help the community navigate this time of ongoing crisis. And there were 4 areas that as we listened to our partners, talked with a lot of different folks in the community, that we heard again and again were going to be ongoing needs in these coming months. And so those are the 4 areas that we're focusing on. 2 of them continue to be around financial stability. One is for folks that, maybe were working. You hear United Way use the term ALICE, which stands for Asset Limited, Income Constrained, and Employed. So folks that are working, but maybe earning minimum wage or not a lot above that. And they're doing okay, but you don't have a lot of cushion when you're in that kind of situation. And so for those folks in particular, trying to help make sure we keep people in their homes. We know that once people lose housing, a lot of things can spiral downward quickly. So trying to keep folks that are kind of on the cusp, but are hanging in their homes and stable in their housing. So that's one focus. We're also going to continue funding basic needs. We know that those needs have not gone away in these first few months. So continuing to provide support for whether it be food or utilities or just other basic needs that folks have that they need to keep themselves and their families healthy and safe. And then alongside that, we have two other focuses that we'll be looking at. One around education. We know that not every student was doing well even before this crisis hit. And gosh, when you end school as we knew it a few months early, and suddenly everyone's trying to figure out remote learning in real time. I mean, I have huge respect for our educators and our teachers. They did an amazing job trying to improvise in the moment, but it was tough. It was tough on everybody. Then you've got summer, kids are off of school anyways. So what we usually see is a summer learning slide. And now we've got kind of a 6-month potential slide, especially for those kids that already were having a tough year. So we're going to be focusing our resources around how can we help those kids that were already, falling behind, likely suffered even more as a result of the past few months. How can we help them try to minimize the gap in their learning and work with our education partners to support that? So that's the third focus. And then finally, fourth, we know that mental health and substance abuse services are going to be really important. Some folks may have already been struggling with those issues, and gosh, being locked up in your house, for several weeks on end, or losing jobs, or worrying about kids, and are they going to be able to go back to school or not? That can bring a lot of those issues if folks had them before back up and present new challenges. Or if folks, maybe these circumstances are bringing those challenges out for the first time and making folks realize, gosh, I need some help. I need some support for my mental health, or gosh, I've been drinking too much, or I'm noticing that someone I love, is having some habits that I'm concerned about. I need to get them help. So we want to make sure that those partners have the capacity to meet the needs and deliver services in different ways than perhaps they've been able to in the past.
The stabilization fund, I would think, Elizabeth, is more towards direct help for the community, as opposed to maybe helping the business aspect, the retailers and the companies providing products and services, to be able to help them keep their doors open and keep their people employed. But yet, it's a fine line. You want to help the people directly, but to help the people directly, they got to be able to have jobs. And if there's no jobs, then, it's just a vicious cycle.
It is. And thankfully, we've been in close touch with our chambers with our chamber partners and Lakeshore Advantage that are directly working with businesses to support them and participate in their processes. But we do feel that our kind of primary piece that we have a responsibility to focus on right now is on people, individuals, families. And at the end of the day, we recognize, folks, being able to try to support their children who need to be learning during this time, being able to get access to supports, whether it be financial supports or mental health or addiction services. Those are going to help people as human beings, but also as employees. We know that when employees are struggling with those things on the home front, that makes it harder, whether folks are trying to get into work right now or whether they're trying to do work remotely.
Elizabeth Kidd is with the Community Foundation of the Holland, Zeeland area. If you have a question for Elizabeth, she'll be happy to answer it at 395-1450, 395-1450. Before we talk a little bit about being able to fund this stabilization fund, this community stabilization fund, let me talk about a little bit about the fact of dealing with the immediate needs. As you mentioned earlier on, Elizabeth, about the fact that when this came out 5 months ago, all hands on deck, we have to try to meet the immediate needs. Now this is the next phase. How much of this next phase is really long term? dealing with it maybe into 2021, 2022 and beyond on those?
That's certainly something that we have our eye on. This stabilization fund is actually intended to wrap up at the end of 2020. So this is going to be another $1 million in funding that my marching orders are, we're getting this out the door yet this year. We know there's a lot of needs, but we absolutely have our eyes on 2021 and what's going to come next. And our board, our leadership are really looking at, what will 2021 look like? The gift of us being an endowment organization is that the bucket gets refilled each year in terms of our funding. And that is an incredible gift from all the folks that have given to us over the years. So we're fortunate to be able to know that we will have resources at the ready to distribute once we hit January 2021. And we're going to be spending quite a bit of time this fall trying to discern exactly what should we do? Because I think it's not clear yet whether the things we're working on right now in supporting for the stabilization fund, will those needs be diminishing by the end of 2020, or will we need to carry some of that focus with us into 2021? Certainly in the long haul, we want to get to recovery. We want to be thinking about recovery and how we return to so many of the things that we all love and cherish about living here in Holland, Zeeland. And hoping that conversation will come sooner rather than later.
But the other thing too, and you just mentioned about the fact of being ready to maybe having to pivot again. What if we get another surge and we have to go take a step or two back? The foundation's probably going to have to be ready for a possible, we're going to be back to what we were doing back in March when we go into October, November, December.
Yes, and that's a reality that, unfortunate as it is, we do want to be prepared for that reality too. And so one of the things about the stabilization fund is we're making grants monthly right now, just because from month to month the situation changes. And so there's an intention to each month be able to look at what are the needs in this moment. Maybe they're the same needs that we thought there would be a month ago, but maybe they're not. Maybe they're different. And in that case, then, as you mentioned the word pivot, I think that word is on everyone's mind these days, that we do want to be able to adapt quickly if the circumstances change to respond to that.
Elizabeth, you mentioned a few moments ago about endowments and making sure that the bucket gets refilled every year, but still endowments only go so far. How's the Community Foundation of the Holland Zeeland area being able to keep the money going in order to do what really needs to be done in our community?
Well, we've been really fortunate. In addition to the resources that are generated each year by our community's endowment, we've also had an amazing group of individuals, donors, families, and businesses who've stepped up to complement the work that we're doing with their own resources. And that has just been an incredible gift. Folks stepped up during that emergency phase, and these are gifts from $5 to $50,000. It really runs the gamut, and we're grateful for every single one of them. And that has proven true again with our stabilization fund. We've been incredibly fortunate to have many of those donors join in the effort. And that has given us more resources to distribute out to the community through the stabilization fund.
I know maybe this is not something up your particular line, Elizabeth, but something I brought up with Mike Gorehouse in the past, and something to keep in mind, endowment, because a lot of people, they'll leave my money for the kids, which is fine, but maybe the kids aren't the best people to try to take care of them, and the endowment would help as well.
Well, we certainly appreciate everyone who's willing to consider thinking about making a gift to the community's endowment as part of the legacy that they leave for the community. I think I will say one thing, that I've been at the Community Foundation for 12 years, and I've had the privilege of working with, I consider them kind of giants in our community who have helped make the Community Foundation what it is today, and have also helped make the community what it is today. And honestly, it makes me feel really good that in this season where many of them aren't with us anymore, I know that they loved and cared about this community so much. And we take very seriously the responsibility to try to respond in the spirit in which we think that those folks would have responded if they were still here, that helped make our community's endowment be what it is. And so I hope as we make decisions today, I think about Bill Vanderbilt, our first executive director, and I just think I try to think, what would Bill do? And I hope that he would be proud and think we're making good decisions and stepping up and serving the community well in this season. And I also know that we're only able to do that because of folks like him and because of so many others who gave in all the years preceding this, that we are at the ready when something happens, to have resources to lean on to try to take good care of our community.
Now, one final thing, we'll wrap up our conversation, Elizabeth, with the fact that for our individual listeners, the help that will be provided from the Community Stabilization Fund will go to there'll be another layer. It's not directly from the Community Foundation. It will be from the organizations that the foundation helps. But for those who are listening who may be with some of these organizations that may have not been able to partner yet with the Community Foundation of the Holland Zeeland area, how can these organizations get a hold of the CFHZ to be able to maybe tap into some of the resources with the Community Stabilization Fund?
Absolutely. And we certainly hope that they do get in touch with us. So if they go to our website, there is a page for the Community Stabilization Fund that they can link to from the main menu. And it talks about, it gives some more information both about what types of things are being funded, and also there is an application that they can fill out. There's my information. They can reach out to me directly to talk further. But we'd love to speak with them. We know that our ability to turn these dollars into the supports and the help and the services that people need right now is all about our partners. So if partners are out there that would like to talk with us, please give us a call, email. We'd love to talk with them.
Our individual listeners can help the Community Foundation of the Holland Zeeland area directly with their contributions. And for those who need the help that the foundation can provide, they can go through the organizations, and the organizations can contact the CFHZ.org site. We'll put a link to that when we put the podcast of our conversation with Elizabeth Kidd on our website at WHTC.com in a few moments. We've had a Zoom conversation with Elizabeth. We recorded the video, so you'll be able to see us conversing. We'll put a link to that as well in a little bit. Elizabeth Kidd from the Community Foundation of the Holland Zeeland area, thank you very much for joining us today on Talk of the Town, telling us about the Community Stabilization Fund. Look forward to chatting with you again soon. Thank you.
Thanks so much for having me.
That is Elizabeth Kidd on 99.7 and 1450 WHTC.